Hello and welcome to the roundup of the Singer Schools Rugby League. It's the second week, but we've had only one roundup so far in Saabir's posh new offices. Good to have Saabir here in this fancy new surroundings, but it's the same old rugby league that we're bringing you, the same old entertainment on ThePapare.com. It's going to be a fantastic season and we're gearing up for it already. In the first week, we saw two great traditional fixtures, Kingswood versus Wesley for the Blase Trophy. Kingswood winning that one by just a few points, and then we had the Joe Pete as well. That was a cracking game. Also, Saabir starting off the season with a massive bang, and then we've got new teams like CWW Kannangara also in the fray. How's it looking this season?
I think Shanaka coach Asel have done tremendously well in the recent past. He's the one from the young days of, he knows he's being a Kannangara player. He brought the team up to like for the 4 years at a stint, and he did major job. But I think they're lacking his service because Asel, as a coaching point of view, he have chosen to coach Royal under 18, and I don't know how worrying things it's going to be for the Kannangara. Probably they might go back to the same division where they played last year. So I just want to know, Shanaka, if you're a coach, what would you do in that case?
Well, honestly, if you're a coach, you look for the best opportunities that you have available for you, Saabir, and obviously Royal Under 18 would have been better pay for sure, better facilities, gets to work with better players, so that's one aspect of things that you've got to look at. But then if you've been with a team for 4 years, if you've brought them to the top division as well, you want to stay with them and see it through as also. So I think the bigger problem though for teams like CWW, Kannangara and Science College and some of the lesser teams that the lesser named teams, although they're good teams, the lesser named teams, what they need to do is hold on to their players. Some of them are leaking players to the top schools, and that's something that you want to help them to be able to do, hold on to their players and play as well in the A division as they can. But we've seen a cracking first and second rounds of rugby, Saabir, and I think it's going to be a really good season this time. I think it'll be really difficult for one team to remain unbeaten this year.
So in the uprights, the kicking, conversion kicks and the penalty kicks, also the drop goals, those are vital aspects, especially the conversion kicks. But only worry is, Shanaka, for the champion Isipatana team. They have scored 19 tries, playing 2 matches, and only made 5 conversion, and including 2 conversions to one of their hooker, who's Nisal Desaka, who also played as a flanker. So how much concern is going to be the champion side?
Well, I've had a bit of an issue with this for the last 2 years as well. Isuru Dilshan takes some of the kicks, Deshaka takes some of the kicks. You don't really find any of their backline players taking the kicks. Now, this is very unusual for Isipatana. They've got some great kickers from the past. You look at guys like Rohan Chintaka, Chanka Jayavira, you have Riza Mubarak of the recent past. And these guys have been excellent football players, excellent ball players, excellent goal kickers as well. So it's surprising that they haven't been able to manufacture those guys through the ranks. But as you say, Saabir, we've had 19 tries scored for Isipatana. That's huge, and only 5 converted, which means 14 tries have gone unconverted, which means it's 28 points that they're leaving on the field. So it's great because they've played teams that are much lower than them in skill, but when it comes to the big games, especially this next one against St. Joseph's that they're going to have, that's going to be a huge game. Then when it comes to Royal, when it comes to Trinity, those points that they leave on the field are going to be a problem. And when you talk about conversions, Saabir, it also tells you something else. You look at the conversions, they're not being made, which means they don't have a good place kicker, which means they're not kicking penalties either. So if you look at the amount of penalties that Isipatana have scored in this tournament, it will be much less. And I'm noticing, even though we've got guys like Mubarak who can come in and coach at Isipatana College level, you've got Nalaka Virakode who's coaching at St. Joseph's, even they've got terrible place kicking problems also. So you've got to ask yourselves, are we doing the proper coaching? Do we have enough skilled boys at this level to put those kicks over? And if that's the problem, how are we going to solve this issue when it comes to a national level if we don't have kickers at school level? So it's an Isipatana problem right now, but it's a symptom of a much larger underlying problem as well.
And in the season so far, after the end of 2 rounds, there's so many playmakers we have seen, especially from Royal College, Supun Warnakulasuriya. Last year also Supun scored 16 times, if I'm not wrong, as a hooker, which is a record for Sri Lankan schools rugby. And what do you think about the other players, Shanaka?
Well, we've got some really interesting players in the players that we've looked at these last couple of weekends. Saabir and Supun, he's really made a huge mark on that hooker's position, coming in and scoring tries. But I think a lot of the credit should also go to this Royal pack. They're a very well-drilled pack. Royal have always had a very strong, good set piece, and a lot of those tries are also coming off the rolling maul. So I think if a player scores a try off the rolling maul, the credit should half the credit should at least go to the pack, and you shouldn't look at him as the only guy who's scoring those individual tries. But one guy who has really impressed me is Saranga Gunatilaka from Trinity College. Trinity College scored a great try off first phase in the last match against St. Anthony's, and it's the first time I've seen a team do that this season, and it looks like they're really well drilled. And this backline for Trinity, they're strong, they're big, and they're also skillful and fast. So that's something that is a little bit different from the other backlines, Saabir, because they've got strength and size all across that backline, and Saranga is hitting those gaps hard. He's a tall guy, so he's difficult to bring down as well, and he's also kicking the points. The other guy that really stood out for me is Dylan Silva from Science College. Oh man, God, he was on fire against St. Thomas's, just completely destroyed his opposition winger. Absolutely no chance. He starts off slowly, but his acceleration is so great, and he manages to cut across the field, find supporting players. He had a hand in three of the four tries that Science College scored, and he was denied another brilliant try because of a small forward pass, but it was a super bit of skill nevertheless. And from St. Thomas's, you've got Ashwanta Herat, who's also probably their best player in the backs. He's big and he's strong, and he's able to break tackles, so he will have to be the cog in that St. Thomas's College side. And Omalka Gunaratna, once again, you're looking at a guy who's really devastating off the back of that scrum. He's not breaking off as much as he used to in the last seasons that we've seen him, but he's still a great ball carrier, and you can see Walpola and Ibrahim are using him and Isuru Dilshan on either side of the breakdown. So there's always a ball carrier available for each of these guys to for the scrum half to go to, and that's where they're really making headway and not needing to score penalties and kick over points, because they're sure that they're going to get those tries with these guys hitting the defensive line so hard. Tariq Saleh, and more than actually his try scoring potential or anything else, Saabir, it's been his ball carrying and his leadership. I've really been impressed by how he managed to bring that Joe's side from 10-0 down at half-time back to win that match against St. Peter's 17 points to 10. He played a big part in that. He's one of those Richard Hill type players who does all the dirty work, just gets smashed up everywhere. You like that because Richard Hill was a wasp, wasn't he? And he does a lot of that work, and he leads from the front. He likes to get stuck in. I think the rest of his team follow him. Reza Refaidin also scoring tries for Kingswood, and in that match against Wesley, I think he would have been very relieved to get that win under his belt, because Kingswood have been under the cosh lately. They haven't produced the sort of players, but this guy is one guy who stands out. So these are the guys who've made their mark so far, but there's a lot of guys still to come up in the next upcoming weeks.
And also, Shanaka, Kevin Dixon, St. Peter's captain, his injury, how much it's going to be a worry for the remaining games? I think he's out for another 2 weeks probably, but luckily we have a holiday coming off another 10 days. How impacted is he going to be?
I think we saw the answer to that question in those next 36 minutes that he was off the field for St. Peter's against St. Joseph. Saabir, when he was on the park, when he was kicking those points, and when he was carrying the ball, he looked a head and shoulders above all the other 29 players on the pitch. And I think that's true of probably a lot of the players in this rugby season so far. I think Kevin Dixon, in terms of confidence, ability, and just flair, he was up there, and when you lose a player like that, it's huge. And St. Peter's need to regroup, they need to recover and tell themselves that it's not a one-man team, and that they have the set piece to make sure that they come through this one. But they're going to miss him. I mean, the player of that caliber, there's no saying that you're not going to miss him. You obviously will, and for the sake of the season, for the sake of St. Peter's specifically, but more for the sake of the season and seeing some good games, I would love to see him back as soon as possible. But head injuries are not something you should mess about with.
Next up in the sin bin, we got 4 yellow cards and 2 red cards, which is not usual in a school rugby match. This happened, the match between Dharmaraja College and St. Thomas's College at CRNFC ground. Were you watching that match, Shanaka? Are you into the referees, or whether it's players' fault?
Well, I think it's always a bit of both. I didn't actually see the game, but I did speak to some people involved after the match, and there's a little bit of inconsistency, Saabir, which is what the main problem is. I think the players don't get communicated to well enough, or the referees also don't do that communicating enough, because they don't know whether it's a general warning, they don't know whether it's a warning for the specific player. They sometimes don't understand what the issue is. Now, sometimes when we hear the referees on the mic, you and I, even if you're in the commentary box, sometimes you're not sure exactly what he said. And if we are not sure listening on the outside, the boys in the heat of the battle, I'm sure only 50% of that goes through to them as well. So it's about game management. And I think a lot of the referees are quite happy giving the yellow cards. And I think maybe they think that that's a good thing, but actually it's not. You've got to try and manage the game so you don't have to give yellow cards. Yellow cards should be for a very cynical infringement or dangerous play or something like that, which you can't control. But I think the issue here is that our referees like to give the yellow cards. Even in the match that I watched that weekend against Isipatana versus Wesley, it was a very one-sided match, but you still saw quite a few yellow cards. In the Joe Pete game also we saw quite a few yellow cards. So I'm sure if you do a study of this sort of games in other parts of the world, I think you'll notice a very high incidence of yellow cards being given out. Now that's partly the players' fault because they're not playing to the rules and repeating consistently, but I think it's also the referees have to share the blame because they're not managing the games as best we can. I think we had a great chat with Suranga Pushpakumara during one of the matches in the club circuit, and he said, yeah, the problem is the referees keep blowing things all the time. They don't let the game flow, and that's an issue that we have as players with them, and I think that is existent in the schools arena as well.
So in the next segment, we are looking at the weekly top point scorers. In the week one, which is concluded, Saranga Gunathilaka, Trinity fullback, he has scored 30 points with 4 tries and 5 conversions, which is excellent for a schoolboy to make in one match, making a 30 points mark.
And I think that's once again a testament to how good this Trinity team is. I think they've got a really balanced team, and this guy just gets on the end of some really good moves by the Trinity team, and they're scoring off first phase, which is great to see. So getting 4 tries and kicking 5 conversions in that game, I think he's fantastic for Saranga Gunathilaka. He's an attacking fullback, and he's a guy I'd like to see scoring a lot of points this season. And our second week, we have Ashwanta Herath, who is our top point scorer with 19 points in that match against Dharmarada College for St. Thomas's College. And like I said before, he's a big lad, and he manages to break holes in the defense, Saabir. And I think it will be important for St. Thomas's that he is a consistently high-scoring performer if this season for them. He's a big test coming up against Trinity. So we're seeing the top try scorer of the first week coming up against the top point scorer, rather, of the second week. Should be an interesting battle there for the Canon RSD Salem Shield. Always a match that gets the mouths watering, but Ashwanta, pretty much a one-man show for him there. He doesn't have as much talent around him as Saranga Gunathilaka does, so it's going to be very much on his shoulders to deliver for St. Thomas's. Here's a look at the points table as it stands so far, Saabir, and looking at segment 1A, it's Isipatana very clearly on top with 2 wins in their 2 encounters and winning those games pretty handsomely. They've got 105 points for them and scored only 5 points against them. So that's a 100-point win-loss points for margin there already with just 2 matches played. St. Joseph's have also played 2 tough games and come through them. Well, 1 tough game, 1 not so tough game. They also scored 74 points against CWW Kannangara, 3 points more than Isipatana managed to score against the same opposition. So that'll send a message for this all-important game this week between Isipatana and St. Joseph's, who are the leaders of segment 1A. We're coming into that top clash there. Kings would have beaten Wesley already, and St. Peter's, who are next in the table, beat Kingswood. So those are the 2 wins that they have notched up in that win column, but those 2 are very much mid-table sides. Wesley, with a very young team, still unable to get off the mark in terms of winning a match, but their match against CWW Kannangara will be one they will be targeting, and also the match against St. Peter's. But a very young Wesley side doing well, but they don't really have the big names that we needed them to have. And CWW Kannangara, in their first real outing in segment 1A, have got a bit of a thrashing. They've had 145 points scored against them with only 11 points for, so things things looking a little bleak for them at this point in time. Moving on to segment 1B, we have Trinity and Royal at the top. So the Rugby opponents have already won 2 matches each, and they've scored some interesting amounts of points as well. Trinity have scored 99 points, which is 6 less than Isipatana have scored in the other half of the draw. Royal have scored 75 points as well, relying almost exclusively on their forwards. They've managed to score those 75 points, which leads to quite a few tries. But one thing that will be of concern for Trinity is the fact that they have also shipped 51 points. So that means teams have managed to score 51 points against them, and it was in that match against St. Anthony's Saabir, it was very much Trinity's conditioning that got them over the line, because St. Anthony's was very much in the game until maybe the last 30 minutes or so. That's when Trinity's superior skill, conditioning and bench strength really took them away. St. Thomas's managed to win the game against Dharmaraja. It was a very tough match for them to win after the opening loss against Science College. It was very important that they won that one, and they've managed to get on the board with that. Science College sitting behind them, just ever so slightly behind them. They will want to catch up and be in 3rd place instead of St. Thomas's. They will be gunning for that position definitely. And then we have Dharmaraja and St. Anthony's bringing up the rear in segment 1B. So the really interesting tussles are going to be the ones between Trinity, Royal, St. Thomas's and Royal as well. Saabir, I think those should be interesting games. And when Trinity plays Science College, also look for Dylan Silva to try and cut them up on the outside. But real competition between the top 2 teams from both segments, Isipatana, Joseph's, Trinity and Royal. Those will be the 4 teams to look out for this season, and we're looking for some entertaining matchups this coming weekend as well.
So we hope you enjoyed the first 2 weeks of Roundup of the Singer Schools Rugby League, and I'm Saabir signing off for ThePapare.com. Along with me,
Shanaka Singer. We'll see you next week.